We're actually live tonight from Peabody Heights Brewery in Baltimore. Despite the smoke and fog of the East Coast. If you can't hear me, just send a message or whatnot. This is being recorded. Couple quick announcements. One is those who want to submit an article for the next edition of the Baltimore Chop, make sure you get it in by June 30th to Ruth Sadler. And if you don't have her email, I can send it to you. Secondly, for those who are going to SABR 51, they have closed the all-inclusive rate. So I think you have to buy it piecemeal if you haven't signed up yet, or by day. One last quick thing. Looks like our annual, and we haven't done one since 2019, game at Camden Yards is going to be August 26th against the Colorado Rockies. I believe it's a bobblehead giveaway that day. We will have a pregame party option for those who want to do that, or you can go to the game, or you can go to one or both, or either or. So more on that in the near future. First time we're doing this from Peabody Heights in a while, so we thank Dick and the staff here for allowing us. Great people as always, for all of you who've been here and know how much not only for baseball historical reasons is this site important, but we love having somebody like Dick, who's a pillar of the community, being in our corner. Tonight we are going to hear from Mr. Lucas Kelly. He's from Maryland. He's a contributing writer at FanGraphs. He's a data scientist at the World Wildlife Fund, and is a believer that the Orioles are still preparing to lift off, which I agree with. He's been working on a passion project that seeks to use the aid of a mathematical model to choose players to get a hit each day while playing MLB plays Beat the Streak. Like the average 2022 MLB hitter, he fails 76% of the time. Still, each day he is looking for ways to identify players who are the most likely to put at least a single in the box score each day. So we're going to join Lucas as he breaks down the rules and strategy and obsession that is his Beat the Streak. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. If not, we'll get some at the end. Go ahead, buddy.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm excited to share with you this work that I've been doing. And let me share my screen. I have a presentation and then I'll get started. All right, let's see here. Let's make sure I share it. Okay. And can everybody hear me? I want to make sure everybody got a thumbs up. Put it in the chat. Can you hear? I would imagine that. Okay, cool. I would imagine that if you couldn't hear me, someone would have spoken up by now. But all right, great. Well, thanks again for being here. My name is Lucas Kelly, and I'm going to talk to you about beating the streak. This is a game that is played and hosted by, it used to be hosted by Dunkin' Donuts, and then some other big organization took it over. And now I think it's hosted by, I think it might actually just be, it was hosted by MGM Casinos for a while. And now I think it's just hosted by MLB. You can go to mlb.com/play, and they're hosting this game. And I'll get into more of the specifics about the game in a second. But really, as Peter mentioned, I'm a data scientist in my day job. I say my day job because I also write for FanGraphs. That's like the work that I do when I'm not doing my day job. I teach some classes in data science. And so machine learning, Python, and baseball data is sort of like what I'm doing here. I'm using my background in data science to see if I can beat this game. And, it's probably not possible to beat this game, but I'm still going to give it a good try. So I've kind of introduced myself already, but I guess the only thing that I haven't mentioned is that this is really something that I've been working on for like 2 or 3 years now, and it kind of has just now gotten to the point where I feel like I might start to have some success, and I might be able to sort of share it widely enough to people who might also play the game. I could share my pick recommendations, but we'll get to that all in a second. So here's what I'll be going over today in this presentation. I'll tell you about this game, Beat the Streak, and I'll look at the rules and what it's actually all about. I'll talk about a model that I've built. It's a mathematical model using machine learning to try and just help me make a pick every single day. I'll talk about the challenges with actually like deploying this model. Hello. And then I'll talk about how good the model is, if it's even worth continuing to use. So let's talk about this game. So I'm here talking to you about this game that I play. And, it's really important to remember that like I'm talking about a game that is fun to play. That's it. It's free. And you could win $5.6 million if you actually get there. Somebody on Reddit calculated the mathematical odds of actually winning this game, and they're so infinitesimally small that I think plenty of people just decided not to play. But I think it's a lot of fun, and I think that you will too. I'm in no way I have no I don't get any kickbacks or anything at all. Like if you play it or not, it doesn't matter to me. You're just going to have fun if you do, and maybe have one less headache if you don't. Okay, so the model that I've built to help me beat this game is called JOLT, and I named it after JOLTIN Joe DiMaggio. And considering that this is a SABR sponsored event, I don't think I need to dive in too much to JOLTIN Joe. And in fact, I read this text very, very carefully because I was sure that if I got something wrong, somebody would point it out and tell me that I'm wrong. I'm giving this presentation to a less baseball savvy audience in a few days. So I added in some text here to give a little background. But Joe DiMaggio, of course, holds the consecutive hit streak record, 56 hits in a row. He did this in the 1941 season. He hit 408 between May 15th and July 16th. He did not hit 408 in that season as a whole, but between that time period, he hit 408. He's in the Hall of Fame. I always just think it's so important to mention that he missed 3 years due to military service. That's something that I just cannot believe, is that baseball players back then would be legends and heroes, then go serve in the military in war, and then come back and continue to play baseball at an elite level. So that is this game is sort of a tribute to JOLTIN Joe DiMaggio. It's a tribute to his 56 game hit streak. The objective is for you to beat that streak, hence the name. And here's a quote from Joe DiMaggio. "Why should I worry? The only time to worry is when you're not hitting," DiMaggio said at the time of the streak. "I'm not worried now, I'm happy. It's no strain to keep on hitting. It's a strain not to be hitting. That's when your nerves get jumpy." So Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams here, and I'm just going to very briefly read from Ted Williams' The Science of Hitting, because this picture really speaks 1,000 words about how hard it is to hit a baseball. So here we go. Hitting a baseball, I've said it 1,000 times, is the single most difficult thing to do in sport. I get raised eyebrows and occasional arguments when I say that, but what is there that is harder to do? What is there that requires more natural ability, more physical dexterity, more mental alertness? That requires a great finesse to go with physical strength that has as many variables and as few constants, and that carries with it the continuing frustration of knowing that even if you are a 300 hitter, which is a rare item these days, you're going to fail at your job 7 out of 10 times. If Joe Montana or Dan Marino completed 3 of every 10 passes they attempted, they would be an ex-professional quarterback. If Larry Bird or Magic Johnson made 3 of every 10 shots they took, their coaches would take the basketball away from them. Golf, somebody always mentions golf. You don't have to have good eyesight to play golf. Tommy Armoire, I think I pronounced that right, was a terrific golfer, and he had no sight in one eye. You have to have good eyesight to hit a baseball. Look at the tragedy of Tony Congliero of the Red Sox. 6'3", beautifully developed, strong, aggressive, stylish, and an injured eye ended his career. When I managed the Washington Senators, I insisted that Mike Epstein get his eyes checked. He was having difficulties hitting, and I suspected it might be partially due to his vision. He did, and with new contact lenses, He had his best season with the Senators. Just a tiny correction. You don't have to have speed to succeed at golf, or great strength, or exceptional coordination. You don't have to be quick. You don't have to be young. Golfers win major tournaments into their 50s. I hit 316 when I was 42 years old and was considered an old man in the game. You never hear a boo in golf. I know that's a factor. You don't have a pitcher throwing curves, sliders, knuckleballs, and if he doesn't like you, maybe a fastball at your head. There's nothing to hurt you in golf unless lightning strikes or somebody throws a club. And there's that golf ball sitting right there for you to hit and a flat-faced club to hit it with. That's Ted Williams, The Science of Hitting. And I just love, one of the greatest hitters, if not the greatest hitter in the history of baseball, is telling you just how hard it is to do the thing that he did a whole lot. Okay, so enough about baseball history. Let's talk about the game and why and how it works and its dedication to the hit streak of Joe DiMaggio. So here on your screen, you see the interface that you use to play this game. If you pay close attention, this is a screenshot from my own profile here. And you can see that my current streak is at 2, which is not good. So here I am telling you, presenting to you about how I've cracked the code on how to beat this game. And my current streak is at 2. However, this screenshot was taken on Monday night. It's now Wednesday, and my current hit streak is at 4 because I was successful Monday night and I was successful last night. We'll see how it goes tonight. So this is what you see, right? And so when you're on this screen, you can see that these are suggested picks. So on Monday night, MLB, they have their own model. And so that also goes to show you how difficult this game is that they're literally using a mathematical model to tell you who you should pick. Why would you do that? Like, this is actually sponsored. I was talking about sponsorship earlier. This is actually sponsored by BetMGM. So they have $5.6 million just waiting around. And there's really, really smart people who are telling you who you should pick every night. And, some people might be like suspicious about that. They might think, well, they're going to give you like bad picks, right? But if you were to pick against the 305 hitting Wander Franco to get a hit, like, that seems pretty intuitive, like he should get a hit. And I think on Monday night, I think he went 2 for 4. So it's a very difficult game to play, but it's a lot of fun. They provide you with picks that they think you should pick, but you don't have to pick those. You can pick anybody. And so even taking that even further, they will break down who has a hit streak currently, who has the best matchup. So on this night, Monday night, they thought Matt Olson batting left against Carlos Carrasco throwing right had a really good chance to get a hit. They also will show you like hits allowed by team. So Luke Weaver of the Cincinnati Reds has given up a lot of hits. The Reds have given up a lot of hits this year. And then finally, hits allowed by starting pitcher. I didn't really know that Hunter Brown has given up 6.2 projected hits. I thought he was a little bit better than that, but yeah, it just goes to show you that they're really breaking down the pick recommendations, I should say, with a lot of data. I mean, it's so much data that you honestly cannot even like take it all in. So here are the rules. You have to pick one player per day to get a hit. And you can pick any player you want. So it's not as if, somebody else picks, Wander Franco and you are not allowed to pick him. You can pick him too. So you can pick one player per day. They have to get a hit. If they get a hit, your streak goes up by 1, right? There's a little extra thing here called a double down. A double down, you can pick 2 batters per day, but they both have to get a hit. If they both don't get a hit, you go back down to 0. So let's say you pick Wander Franco and the other suggestion there was Nate Lowe of the Texas Rangers. Nate Lowe, I don't know how you pronounce it, but if Franco gets a hit and Nate of the Texas Rangers does not, you go back down to 0. But if they both get a hit, obviously you get 2 picks. So imagine, we're in game 120 of the season, you're back down to 0. You basically have to double down every single day at game 120, right? So you wouldn't, if you just picked one single batter per day, you wouldn't get to 56, even if you made a hit every single day until the end of the season. So the double down strategy at a certain point is required. And then there's all kinds of strategy involved. Like if you know anything about baseball, you know that if you pick a batter who hits in the leadoff position, they're going to get more at bats than the guy who's batting in the number 9 spot, right? If you pick the guy who's batting in the number 9 spot, he might only get up 3 times, whereas the leadoff hitter is batting, possibly 4 times. In addition to the fact that almost every single day, the recommendation is to pick whoever's batting in Colorado, because that park is, gigantic and the air is thin. So let's point out the obvious. Why wouldn't you just pick Luis Arraez? He's basically batting 400. In fact, I think he might be batting 400 right now, 401 maybe even. I think I might have heard today. So he's putting together a historic hit season. And the answer is right here on your screen, right? If you look closely at this game log, he went on a hit streak from, my thing is in the way here. He went on a hit streak starting on May 24th. And he had a hit every single day until June 1st, through June 1st. And then on June 2nd, he went 0 for 4. He went 0 for 4. And then on June 3rd, he went 5 for 5 with 3 doubles, which is crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does actually. It makes a lot of sense. Hitting a baseball is very difficult. But it just proves the point that, like, if you were to think, okay, I'll just pick Luis Arraez every night because he's batting 400. Well, batting 400 is an incredible feat, but it still means that, you are not batting, 600. So the question that I'm trying to answer with data is, can a mathematical model detect some sort of aspect about hitting that, would tell you, not to pick Luis Arraez when he's on a hot streak? So what is it about the batter and the pitcher that makes you think this guy's going to get a hit tonight? I can just feel it. Besides the fact that he had an extra cup of coffee before the game, or he I don't know, he had a good night's sleep the night before. Those are things that we don't know anything about, right? So can a mathematical model help us determine the best player on any given night to get a hit? So let's have a little interactive thing here. Let me see if I can get the chat open, but wait a minute, didn't want to click that. Go ahead and pop in the chat and I'll see if I can get it open. Pop in the chat, just in the chat, write down your answer to this question. If you were to build a mathematical model to predict a daily hit, what features would you use? In other words, what is predictive of a hit tomorrow? So tonight you're thinking, who's going to get a hit tomorrow? What am I thinking about? What are the types of things that I'm thinking about? I've already sort of mentioned a couple. So the park that the team is playing in is one, right? Colorado has a really big outfield. The air is thin, and that's a good place to get a hit. So the stadium matters. You saw earlier also that the pitcher the next day, that really matters. What else matters? Go ahead and pop it in the chat if you can. And I'm going to see if I can monitor the chat. Can you see the chat? I don't know why I can't see the chat. There we go. Okay, I got it. Speed of the hitter, excellent. Yeah, perfect. Speed of the hitter, absolutely. Because if you're fast, if you're like crazy fast and you hit a little dribbler, down the third base line, you could beat it out for a hit. So perfect. Fast hitters. Anything else? Anybody got anything else? What is predictive of a hit? Anybody in the room?
You are in the batting order.
Yeah, exactly. Where you are in the batting order. That was the gimme. Already said that. Good. I'm glad you're paying attention. What else? We got speed of the hitter, where you are in the batting order, the stadium.
Weather conditions.
Weather conditions. Weather conditions. Very good. Weather conditions is a big one, especially if it's like raining and there's going to be no game, because you can pick a player, the game gets canceled, and then that's your pick for the day. You can't change it. If that happens, it's a pass. So your streak doesn't go back to 0 if they don't hit. Okay, so let's just move forward here and let's throw some things out there. You can argue these all you want. Let me go back to slideshow here. How about, so weather, somebody said that in the room, and that's on the screen. How about the pitch type? So if you have a pitcher who's like throwing 101 high in the zone on a constant basis, that's really hard to hit. Like, that's really hard to hit. If Jacob deGrom is up there and he's throwing a slider that moves like 4 feet away from the bat at the last second, that's really hard to hit. The stadium, this is funny. You see at the bottom, the shift on. That's from last year, obviously. The shift is no longer allowed, so that should be erased from this PowerPoint. And I just made this year too, so I don't know what I was thinking. But speed is in there. Somebody said that. Pitch velocity. How about like what the player ate for dinner? Did they have a pregame snack? That's just a joke, but like those are the things that you can't measure. How about the mood of the batter, right? Like sometimes I go to work and I'm just like, I don't want to be here. And I don't do very good at work that day. All right. So I doubt many baseball players are saying, I don't want to be here, but they might go into the box with other things on their mind. They're humans. So these are the things that matter to a player getting a hit. And so I'm a data scientist. And when you use machine learning as a data scientist, you're trying to figure out like, yeah, these are all things that you can measure, but what of them are statistically significant when it comes to predicting an outcome. And so the goal here is to break down all of these data points. So on your screen right now, you see like a lot of data, and this is all data that's publicly available. Anybody can go online and get this. You just go to StatCast, Baseball Savant, and you can download all of this data for every single pitch that's thrown. This is pitch level data. So everything that you see here on the screen represents one single pitch. The game date, the pitch type, the release position, the spin of the pitch, like all of this stuff is publicly available and we have access to it, and we can determine whether or not it has any influence on whether that batter made contact with the ball and then landed in play and then made the batter was quick enough or hit it well enough to get on base. So I'm trying not to be too long-winded. I'm going to start to move a little bit faster. There's all kinds of things that are very predictive of a hit. Launch angle is one of them. If you have a launch angle, as you can see by the histogram on the left side of the screen, a launch angle somewhere in the range between 50 and 30 degrees is very predictive of a hit. Hits are often struck with an angle in that area, right? And so when the bat hits the ball and it goes a certain angle off of that bat, right? When the ball strikes into the field, it's much more likely to fall for a hit if it's in a certain range. And that's really because basically it's just a line drive. Line drives get hits. Pop-ups do not get hits, right? Mash the ball into the ground. Even if you hit it hard as hell, it's still not going to be a base hit because you just mashed it into the ground and you have professional athletes who are fielding that ball, right? So launch angle is very predictive of a hit. You can see the difference on the non-hits over here. The range is really wide, so you can hit it all over the place, but it's much tighter when you look at the launch angle of hits. The problem here is that you can hit a ball at any angle and it'll fall for a hit, right? So you see that green band right through the middle of this visualization here. That means like that launch angle is consistent between around that 20 degree, 25 degree range. That's where the hits are consolidated. That's because a launch angle in that range is really good for a hit. But when you look this way on the graph, left to right, that's the release position of pitcher. And every release position by the pitcher, that's where the pitcher is releasing the ball, it gets hit, right? So every single one of those left to right is green. And so basically what that means is launch angles are good, but you can't really determine if a pitcher is going to throw the ball in a certain way that's going to make that launch angle occur, right? And if you think about that, that makes sense. Like any pitcher anywhere, whether you're playing in Little League or you're playing in the pros, can release the ball at all kinds of different places and it'll still eventually get hit. And so back to the Science of Hitting by Ted Williams. He was talking about this years ago. He was talking about this. This book was published, I think, in 1973 or something like that. And he was hitting in the well before that. 1970, this book was first published. And Ted Williams was talking about basically swinging the bat through the zone in a way that meets the ball on the plane. So if the ball is coming in at an angle like this, and you're swinging like this, you're going to mash it down into the ground, right? If the ball is coming into the zone like this, and you're hitting it at an angle like this, it's going to be a pop fly. Those are not good for hits. But if you are on plane with the pitch, you're meeting the ball at the same angle as your bat is meeting the ball at the same angle as the pitch is coming in, it's going to go out into the field and be much more likely to fall for a hit. And so I point this out because Ted Williams has been talking about this forever. Ted Williams talked about this a really long time ago, I should say, but we've never really been able to measure it. And so on the left side of your screen, you see it's actually really just like a person, but I guess it's an organization nowadays called FanGraphs, and they have a way to actually provide the data for the angle of the batter's swing. And so that is something that's really important to a hit, because it's not like launch angle where every batter is hitting every ball every which way. This is specific to the hitter, and it explains how the batter is swinging the bat and whether or not their bat is in a path that matches up with the pitcher's throw. And this is just a little bit of a visual on swing graphs that you can actually go on there, and you can use this interactive 3D swing path to look at different hitters and the path of their swing, and where it stands. So if you ever see a hitter who's just mashing the ball into the ground, it's likely that their swing path is off. They need to make some adjustments to their swing to get that ball up into the air a little bit more. And so again, Ted Williams was also talking about this thing called vertical approach angle. And so we have this part, Ted Williams is swinging the bat, right? And he thinks he needs to get his swing on plane with the pitch, his swing at an angle that meets the pitch. But now we're talking about this part, the ball coming into the zone. And so when we have these two things, at least this is my theory, when we have these two things and we can measure them, we might get a better sense of who's going to hit, because we know this batter is like this and this pitcher is like this, and that's a good matchup for hitting the ball into the field of play or out of the yard. I mean, a home run is a hit, right? So that still counts. And so vertical approach angle, you see at the bottom of your screen, there's just this very simple, well, it's not simple, but it's a calculation that you can get to using publicly available data. And you can determine every single pitch and how it enters the zone, the angle that it comes in at. Here's another visual. This is provided by Simple Sabermetrics, a YouTube channel. I highly recommend it. This is just a good visual to show you vertical approach angle. So this is sort of, I was going like this, but I guess now you have to imagine from this side. This is the pitch coming in from the pitcher's release point into the zone. And if you imagine that zero line is a straight line from where they release the ball all the way to basically what would be like the umpire's head, the top of the umpire's head. That's the zero line. And so all vertical approach angles are negative, unless the pitcher really reels back and throws a ball and it hits the umpire in the head, which is never a good thing. So those are two measurements that I'm using in my model. And that's basically the basis for this whole model is, can a vertical approach angle of a pitch match up with a vertical bat angle of a swing to tell us who's likely to get a hit every single day? And in machine learning speak and data speak, this is what I have to change the slide. That says deployment data. It should say training data, because this is the data that I'm training a model on. I'm training this machine learning model on all of these data points, these columns that you see here, and it's really not a lot. It's 7, 8, in order to predict a hit. And the hit is just a binary target. Did you get a hit or not? So in this case, I don't know who the pitcher or the hitter is, and I don't care. All I care about is how do release points and vertical bat angles, which you see all the way to the right of the screen, match up to predict a hit. So now there comes a lot of really big challenges when it comes to actually deploying this model. So here I call this training data. Don't look at the title because it's wrong. It should say JOLTS training data. And that means that all this data is being fed into a machine learning model. And a machine learning model is not doing anything but learning from this data, right? It's just looking at all this data faster than a human can, and it's just trying to figure out what's happening in there, what's gonna make a hit, right? It's looking at all of these numbers and it's gonna spit out a prediction later. But the problem is we don't know tomorrow or today, maybe not today because a bunch of games got canceled because of the smoke, but tomorrow when Lance Lynn throws his fastball, if he releases it at the same point as he always does, and he's in a certain park and he throws it in a certain zone, and a batter uses a certain launch speed and a certain angle, will it be a hit or not? But the problem is we don't really know what Lance Lynn is going to throw tomorrow. And we also don't know how hard, I don't know who the White Sox are playing tomorrow, but whoever they're playing, we don't know who the leadoff batter, we don't know how hard the leadoff batter is going to hit it. We don't, but we have a general sense of it. And that's what I'll be talking about when it comes to deploying. So back to everybody's thoughts about, well, what can you use to determine whether or not a batter will get a hit? Weather is not really helpful when you're building a predictive model because I don't really know what the conditions of the game will be tomorrow. And I have to run this every single morning. So if I don't run this in the morning, then I'll probably get fired because I'll spend all my days rerunning my machine learning model and I won't actually go to work that's what pays the bills. So I got to keep doing that. But you have, even at the very start of the game, there's weather delays, right? You wouldn't be able to tell, okay, a storm's coming in the fourth inning, and at that point, so-and-so will be up. That's just not possible to predict. So there's a lot of things that are really challenging that you have to sort of cut out of the predictive sense, in that you won't really be able to predict it tomorrow. You won't really be able to feed that information into your model because you don't really know what's going to happen. So this is what I have to do every day, and this is what my model does. And it's kind of something that creates a lot of challenges. First of all, I mentioned that my model runs every morning, but managers won't really release their probable pitchers sometimes, up until an hour before game time. So my model and the code that I wrote will scrape the MLB website. Don't tell MLB because I don't want my IP address to get banned, but I only do it once per day, so maybe they don't really care. It scrapes the data from that website every day and it feeds it into my model. It says, here's who's pitching for the Rockies. Here's who's pitching for the Yankees. If the pitcher has not yet been announced, I have to manually go in and go to FanGraphs and look at their predicted probable pitcher, and they're right, usually about 98% of the time. So, but it just goes to show you that this is not really a fully automated process. I could cut that pitcher out and say skip it, but if they're going up against I don't know, the Texas Rangers, let's say, for example, who I think are pretty offensively driven this year, then you're cutting out a lot of really good hitters, right? Marcus Semien is on a hit streak all the time, and Corey Seager is hitting the ball hard on a regular basis, right? So there's two batters that you've cut out of your prediction because you just didn't have enough data available. I bring in the park factors. So I say, who are all the home teams and who basically, what are those park factors? So every park has a number associated with it. How good is it offensively? How poor is it offensively? And that's brought into the model. Okay, now here's the really tricky part. I simulate pitching and hitting. And so I'll explain what that means in a minute. Because like I said before, I don't know what Lance Lynn is going to throw tomorrow, but I have a pretty good idea because he throws, a fastball high in the zone on a regular basis. And I know for the most part how fast he's going to throw his fastball. So I can sort of simulate that data, combine it into pitcher and hitter matchups, and then predict who's going to get a hit. And I say predict, but predict plus, and I'll show you what that means here in a second. And so here's what it looks like. This is the matchup scrape and the park factors brought in. So on Monday, Tampa Bay was playing the Boston Red Sox and Shane McClanahan was pitching. The park factors, however, were 106. And so I think this was in Boston. Boston is a hitter-friendly park because you can bang it off the green monster, or you can shoot it down the right field line. That's really good. But Shane McClanahan is also really good. And so it's difficult to pick any batters against Shane McClanahan this year because he's been on fire. I simulate pitching. So I say Shane McClanahan is going to throw a changeup and he's going to throw it in zone 12. And this is what his release point will look like. And pitchers rely on consistency. So I'm fairly certain that Shane McClanahan is going to throw a changeup tomorrow, or at least on Monday when I did this, with these metrics. So I'm sort of simulating Shane McClanahan pitches. And that makes sense when you look at like Shane McClanahan's data, right? You can see here that second one from the left is a changeup. The red part is where he likes to throw his changeup on a regular basis. And I'm basically assuming that he's going to do something similar. I'm doing the same thing with hitting. So I'm saying, you know, when Masataka Yoshida hits a changeup, he hits it at this speed, somewhere between 75 and sometimes at 99 miles an hour. So he blasted one in this data. And so I'm giving like this real wide range that is accurate of the hitter of what sort of batted metrics they'll put on the ball. And I can also sort of validate this. So I can go into Savant data and I can see that this has happened before. And in fact, that's what's supplying my data, is stuff that's happened before. Now, anybody who knows anything about data science and machine learning, these data points that I'm simulating are real data points, but they're not included in my model. So my model has never seen them before. And that's really important, because if my model has seen them before, it'll be predicting what has already happened. And that's not predictive of what will happen in the future. So in this case, I know that this is an accurate data point because Masataka Yoshida hit this ball. This was the 99.8 one. So we can go back. And that 99.8 one, actually don't know if that was a hit. Oh wait, it says ground out. So this was a ground out. He hit this ball, smoked it. I mean, he hit it 100 miles per hour. It's a really, really tough pitch to hit. And it was a ground out. So I combine that data and I say, who's batting against who, what pitcher? What are the pitcher's metrics? Where will they be releasing the ball? What's the angle of their pitch? Where are they pitching, right? What's the park like? Where will they throw that ball typically, in what zone? What's the launch speed of the hitter? How hard will the hitter, bat that ball? And then also, what's the angle of the batter's bat? So this is sort of like the secret sauce of my model that other models are not using. Where is that ball coming into the zone, and where is that hitter meeting the ball in the zone? And then you can see all the way to the right, my model spits out probabilities of a hit. And in this case, I call this predict plus, because the model said that Martin Maldonado was going to get a hit on Alek Manoah. And if you know anything about Maldonado, you know that he's not a good hitter. And so my model said that he is the one who's most likely to get a hit on Monday. And I'm like, that can't be right. So it's very clear that there's something happening in the model that is not being detected elsewhere. But if I were to just blindly read the model's outputs every day, I would be worse than I was if I was just like kind of using my intuition. Martin Maldonado does not have a good chance of hitting. It's 49%. He's batting .203 on the year at this point in the season. Alek Manoah was demoted to AAA. He has stunk this year. And as an Orioles fan, I am enjoying that a little bit too much. But part of it makes sense. Other parts don't, right? Manoah has been terrible, but Maldonado is just not known as a hitter. He's a catcher. He's an incredible catcher. And that's why he's stuck around for as long as he has. And so this just goes to show you, like, where is the ball coming in? These are the zones that I'm using. So I'm saying when Masataka Yoshida hits a ball in zone 13, how good of a hit is it? And so this is called predict plus. Now I'm taking all of my model's predictions and I'm aggregating them. I'm averaging them out. So Bo Bichette now rises to the top when I add in this plus. And I bring in their season-wide data. Now you see a lot of missing values there because this is only applying to qualified hitters and qualified pitchers. So I can only bring in these extra stats for qualified hitters and pitchers, but it still is helpful to see why my model is making the predictions that it's making. In this case, Bo Bichette was in the model enough times, and on aggregate, he's the one who the model thinks is going to get a hit. Remember, like if it's saying, oh, Bo Bichette's definitely going to get a hit if whoever's pitching to him throws a fastball right in the middle of the zone. Well, yeah, like that makes sense, but is that actually going to happen? I don't know. So aggregating all of these potential pitches and batted ball events is a much better way to approach it. So let's evaluate the performance. Remember, this was Monday night. If there are any Toronto Blue Jays fans in the audience, maybe you know what happened. MLB Play had Nate Lowe as the highest, actually second highest behind Wander Franco. But I actually made my pick a little bit too late in the day because I think Tampa Bay Boston was a day game. That's another challenging aspect about this. If you're a normal human being and you have a life outside of just like thinking about who will get a hit, sometimes you forget to make your prediction. So MLB Play, this was their second highest pick. They thought he was going to get a hit, 73% chance. They gave Bo Bichette a 71% chance. My model said Bo Bichette was the #1 guy to get a hit on Monday. Did we win? Yes, we did. We're one step closer to $5.6 million. Unfortunately, we still have 52 picks to go, but we're working towards it. Nate Lowe also got a hit. So MLB's recommendation was good. It wasn't as good as mine, I think, at least, because Bo Bichette went 2 for 3. Nate Lowe went 2 for 5. We're splitting hairs at this point, but it just goes to show you how I'm sort of measuring the success of my model. And here it is. We can watch it. Beautiful hit right over the second baseman's head. He almost got a glove on it too, which is another aspect about this game that is, always challenging. But there we have it. We have the hit. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just basically matching up my success rate with MLB Play's success rate. MLB Play, I've picked their picks more times this season than I've used Jolt, and that's just because it took me a while to get Jolt up and running for the season. But now that it's all up and running and I'm making daily picks, it's getting closer and closer to MLB Play's model. And like MLB is using data science, big data, machine learning to make their recommendations. And it's probably much more advanced than I have done. Unfortunately, I write about all this stuff on FanGraphs, and I'm positive that MLB people read FanGraphs, and I'm basically just giving away all my information for free. So, well, not for free if you're a member to FanGraphs. You should be a member. That way you don't have to read all those Google ads all the time. But, it's all fun and games. And I don't think that any information I'm going to give anybody is going to, well, maybe it'll get them closer to winning the game, but it's still a really hard game. So that's how I measure the success of Jolt. I put it up against their picks and see how we do. So what's next? I'd really like to continue to evaluate how my picks do. I'd like to automate this model so that it just runs itself every day and I don't have to do it in the morning. I'd like to have an automated portion that tweets out my picks so that other people can see who I think is likely to get hit. That comes with a little scariness because if my model says Maldonado is going to get a hit tomorrow, I'll get blasted on Twitter and everyone will call me an idiot and stuff, and it'll make me feel bad about myself. So I don't, I'm a little bit worried to do that, but it comes with a little, I have to have a little oversight to make sure that the model isn't producing like not realistic picks. Excuse me. Right now I'm using monthly average vertical bat angle from SwingGraphs. But very soon, at least next season, I'm told that Baseball Savant will be giving us vertical bat angle measures for every single pitch, or at least every single swing by the batter. And that is going to be incredibly useful for this model. And so that's what I mean by moving beyond averages. I'd like to, instead of averaging out monthly bat angles, I'd like to get a hold of that data that Savant is yet to release. And then finally, you saw all those null values. I'd like to bring in, I'd like to find a way to bring in data for non-qualified hitters and pitchers to get a little bit more detail to my predict plus picks. And then finally, I need to win. I need to win it. I need to win $5.6 million so that I can spend all my money going to baseball games and have a little bit more for my hobby. And that's about it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you maybe have learned a little bit about this fun game that's free to play, and that, if I ever start tweeting out my picks, you'll be able to use them to maybe get closer to winning yourself. Here's my email address. If you have any questions or you're interested in learning more, I'm happy to take any of your emails. And you can always find my writing at fangraphs.com. And I think my Twitter handle is on FanGraphs too, although I don't tweet very much. You could always find me there. So thanks very much. Thanks to the chapter for having me. I've really enjoyed it. And back over to you, Peter.
All right, guys. That was a lot to digest. I'm a little bit of an older generation, so a lot of that is Greek to me, and I did take classical Greek in high school, so I can handle it sometimes. Anybody out there have questions for Lucas? He's a member of our chapter. He lives down in Silver Spring, so hopefully we'll be seeing him at more events in the near future. Anybody? Either in the chat or raise your hand. I don't know if you can see anybody. Stop. Oops. Go ahead.
So I was curious, I looked up if Maldonado got a hit on Monday. He didn't even play. So if that happens, Bobichet's out of the lineup, you just go to number 2.
Well, you basically just get a pass. So
No, I'm
if
sorry,
like
you don't like.
Oh, sorry. Oh, so the question was from the room, Maldonado did not play on Monday night. He looked up whether Maldonado got a hit. Maldonado wasn't even in the lineup. So in that case, yeah, you're not allowed to make like backup picks. So if I had picked Maldonado and he didn't play, it's just a pass. So whatever my streak was, it would continue into the next
I
day.
guess the question is you make the pick before lineups come out?
Yeah, you have to. You have to. So your pick locks before the game starts. Yeah, and like maybe even like 5 minutes before the game starts. So I've had that happen too, where I was like, oh crap, I have to get my pick in for the day, and like the best pick the game had already locked, especially if it was a day game. So yeah, unfortunately you can't. It would be nice if they said like, who's your backup plan for the day if whoever you picked isn't in the lineup. But
So you do it before lineups come out?
yeah, I do it personally, but you don't have, like, you could wait until lineups come out. Yeah, I have to do it like in the morning before I go to work. So, but you know, in the world of information that we're in, FanGraphs, roster resource on FanGraphs has a pretty great spreadsheet of like where a batter typically is in the lineup. And so you can kind of, think that like they'll be in that position again. Yeah, thanks. Good question.
Anybody else? I know a couple people have already dropped off for the night. You have anything to add?
no, I'm good.
We appreciate, obviously, Lewis taking the time up to come up from Silver Spring and the I-95 traffic, which I'm sure wasn't too much fun, even though it is technically summer. So our next meeting, the in-person one, will be there's a 7th, so 2 weeks from today, so the 21st at Babe Ruth Museum for those who come to the in-person one, 12 p.m. downstairs in the basement. Hopefully the air quality will be cleaned up by then. And we do have our Baltimore Babble the last Sunday of the month at 7 p.m. And I believe we have a speaker, and it's escaping me right now, but check your email for the recent message that went out with for the next 2 months for all of our events. So I haven't gotten home yet, so unless anybody else has any other questions or concerns, we'll see you guys next time. Reach out with any questions to me about events, anything having to do with this game. I think I'm going to give it a try. Hit Lucas up with the things that are way over my head, and we'll see you guys next time. And for those of you who are going to Chicago, I'll see you in a little bit under a month. Have a good night.
You do, this was all about hitting, but